Again, a fourth down talk where every down counts and so does your opinion. I'm back again, your host ABM, along with my friend Extra Crispy. How you doing today?
I'm feeling good, man. I had a nice extended weekend to kind of get my mind right, kind of put everything out of my head about my team. But we're back and we're ready to talk football. Let's get it
Excellent.
going.
All right. Well, listen, folks. Remember, before we start, we do want you to like and subscribe to the channel. You can also find us on TikTok as well. Today, we're going to be covering up some of Week 15, a little bit of the games that happened, as well as also preview Week 16. We're even going to be talking about some coaching hot seats that could be happening based on
Mm,
the outcomes of this year, and we might even look into a little bit of the Eagles turmoil. But first, let's go ahead and start off with last week. We can even start with the Eagles game in that case. From a standpoint, they had their victory. Wait, did they win that game?
they
Yeah, they
won.
did against
Yeah,
the
they
Carolina
won.
Panthers, but it was a
Hmm.
close win. And they even asked AJ Brown about some of the little issues that was going on with them. And AJ Brown put it simply, it's about passing. Just to give a little context in here, Jalen Hurts is having a season reminiscent of Daniel Jones to some degree.
It
Highlighted by his
is.
performance on Sunday, Hurts attempted just 21 passes for 118 yards. But if you account the sacks, he only netted 83 passing yards. That's pretty
Mm,
bad in some contrast. AJ
yeah, that's
Brown, who,
fair.
like I said, in most said in his response to the question of what do you got to do about the offense, was just passing. You even had a defensive end, Brandon Graham, who added fuel to the fire in an appearance on WIP in Philadelphia addressing the issue between Hurts and Brown. He remarked, I don't know the whole story, but I know one's trying. Maybe AJ can handle things better. They were friends, but before life happens, this is a business. We can't let personal issues interfere with that. Everyone sees there's an issue, but usually it just takes a conversation. Both sides have to be willing to talk, work things out like men. That's what needs to happen so we can get to the next game. But the problem is only one side wants to talk and the other doesn't. Can this
Mm.
tension between Hurts and his receivers underscore their issues that could later disrupt their focus on trying to get to the playoffs? I'm sorry, trying to get to the Super Bowl.
No, I say, yeah, they seem like a lock for the playoffs. But yes, this absolutely could become a problem. Your primary receiver is upset because you're not giving him the ball enough. You're not getting the ball out enough. I get that. But at the same time, AJ, your team is winning. Now, I could understand a little bit more his frustration if it was like the Niners for a second. I mean, Debo Samuel had an interesting thing as well, slightly different. We'll get to that. But if your team is winning, why are you complaining? Because you know who I don't hear complaining? The receivers in on the Chargers. Justin Herbert passes less than he did. He hasn't thrown a lot of touchdowns. He barely throws the ball at all compared to how he used to, but they're winning games more often than they used to be. The Eagles have one of the best records in the conference, and you're complaining because you're not getting the ball enough. I mean, I would understand if they were, like a 7-6 team or 8-5, even to a certain extent, but they have what, 10, 11 wins? Like, AJ, I get that you're frustrated. Talk to your quarterback before you go to social media or start spouting off in interviews. I don't like that. I don't. And I think it's a sign of bad news, is what I think. Okay, I lost the ability to hear you again. I can't hear you. I can't.
All right, can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, that's what that is. Um, just to put in context, AJ Brown had 4 receiving and 4 targets. That was the second
Four
most in the
targets.
game. Not on, but he only had 43 yards. This isn't
Mm,
so much about not getting looks. This is so much about the passing game not being effective.
the offense
And
not
that's
being okay.
and that's what it sounds like because when you look at everyone else's stats, Devontae Smith, 37 yards. Um, Grant, he has 16 yards, mind you. Uh, oh God, what's the name? Jalen Hurts had
Yeah.
108, but he only had 88 passing yards in total, 118 yards. So it's just more so, like you mentioned, a Daniel Jones, where it ain't the targets, it's just it ain't a strong passing game. Granted, they are winning, and that could be more so thanks to them having Jaquan Barkley.
I'm about to say, yeah. They
So
got Barkley setting records. He's already what at 1,600 yards total.
yeah,
Like,
so
like you
mhm.
can't have it both ways. If you're going to be a running team, you're not going to pass as much. If you're going to be a passing team, you likely don't run as much.
Well,
And if you're winning games, isn't that the whole goal? I mean, I get it. He wants his individual numbers too. I understand that. You want to get what you feel like you're being paid for. You don't want to feel like you're being overpaid or you're just a detriment to the team because, hey, if we could throw anybody out there to get 40 to 50 receiving yards a game, why do we have to pay you $25 million to do it? I would understand it from that point of view. But if the formula is currently working, why are you trying to throw a wrench into it?
Because will it work in the playoffs? They aren't the greatest passing offensive team in the league.
No, they're not. But they have a top 10 defense, though, too.
Well, all right, the defense. No one's really saying much on defense, but I guess it does come to the concern, can this offense win playoff games? Can this offense, considering the teams they have to go through in the NFC, will that be strong enough? Can you just rely on the defense in that regard? I know defense can win championships, but will the Eagles need that?
Who would they be playing in the playoff? If the playoffs started right now, who would they play?
Well, let me take a look into that and see.
I was gonna say.
But while I look into that, are they also in terms the second best team in the NFC, just based on record, or is it also based on anything else? Because right now the Lions are considered the best, although I will question.
No, the Lions are considered the top of the NFC. They're 12-1. They haven't lost since they were 1-1. And that's impressive, to say the least. They lost their best defender, and their defense got better. Also impressive. Now, their defense is the most banged up in the NFC, which is also something to take note of. They have, 17 players out on defense in total? Now, they don't have a lot of offensive players out, but that's going to hurt going into the playoffs. Losing all of those defenders when you're going to have to play teams who have receivers like the Vikings, like the Packers, if you do have to run across them again, it's hard to beat a team 3 times. All right. They might have beaten them twice. It's hard to beat them 3 times. Can they beat the Eagles? I'm not so sure. Can the Eagles stop the Lions? I'm not so sure. Because they have one of the more potent offenses in the game, too.
Well, they always talk about whether or not Dan Quinn is going to be the reason why the Lions even lose those games in the first place. He likes to take chances, but what's funny? Well, I'll go into that in a moment. If the playoffs were to start today, the Eagles will be facing the Washington Commanders.
They can beat Washington. I don't believe in Dan Quinn.
Oh, okay. Then their secondary opponent would be the winner between Green Bay and the Seahawks.
They can beat the Seahawks. The Packers might give them a little trouble. They did beat them way back in week 1, but that was week 1. And it was in Brazil. That was a weird game. I think if the Packers had another shot, they might be able to do something because the Eagles, it's very interesting about numbers this year, about them being ranked. Because I keep spouting on about how they're the only team that's top 10 on offense and defense. But sometimes those numbers don't tell the whole story. Because if you look at the Panthers game they just played, that was a 1-score game. Panthers are not a good team. If you look at the Jaguars game that they had to get a last-second interception to win that game. They're not a good team. They got blown out by double digits against the Buccaneers when they had their receivers. So I don't know. I don't know how good this team is. And, speaking of numbers, not to throw my own team under the bus here, but in the current state of the Niners, they're ranked with the number 3 ranked offense. It doesn't show. It doesn't show on the field. So I don't know if these numbers are really everything I need to go by. And based on what happened with the Eagles last season, when they started out and they had 11 wins, and then they just had a massive collapse going down the stretch, only to inevitably lose in wild card weekend, we could be looking at that again if they don't get this shit right. You can't be having issues between your number 1 receiver and your quarterback. We're in week 15. All right. The playoffs are less than a month away. And last time you guys got there, you lost in pretty pitiful fashion to the Buccaneers. You don't want to have that process repeated. Yeah,
you see, this is why I don't want to say I take AJ's side in it, but it's like you look at Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts only had one great season in the NFL, and that was the year in which he had who was the offensive coordinator on that?
Shane Steichen, I want to say.
Shane Steichen, that's right. Yeah, I think it was. So it's like he's never been considered that top epsilon of QBs. He only had that one close run. And I guess that is the side of the coin, because you even mentioned about the games they had and how they got blown out against the Buccaneers. They had close matchups. If the Panthers would have gotten that receiver to hold on to the ball in the last bit of that throw, the Eagles could have lost that game. So it's like, I get the strong and the strength of your defense, but at the same time, in case something happens to Shaquan, what are you going to do? You don't have an offensive passing game to really rely upon. And I think that is the underground or underlining concern that Brown has in that case. Because what are you going to do? Hurts can run, but I mean, what can you do if you can't get the ball out? Against a bad Panthers team, 118 yards.
That's not good, yeah. So, I mean, granted, that team did also take the Chiefs down to the wire, but it did require Patrick to do a lot more, and he did a lot more.
It'll be interesting to see. It is going to be fascinating once the playoffs start.
This team has just gotten over its issues with the coach, and now you're having issues with the quarterback and your wide receivers, because earlier this season, the issue was Nick Sirianni. And how they're worried he lost the locker room. And when I'm not so sure you have the locker room, if your star receiver, you got a defender involved now, and they're both talking about your offensive passing game.
Well, the receiver, all he said was passing. He only made one comment. He didn't make a whole big deal. The big comment came out of the defensive player running his mouth, saying that confirming that there was an issue between the two. Everything was still kind of rocky. All Brown said was passing. That was it. He didn't say my quarterbacks suck. He didn't say he can't throw. He just said passing. And you can take that.
Have we checked on his likes? Because sometimes they'll give it away in their likes. Because remember, during the whole Brandon Ayuk saga, when he was having issues, he was liking pictures online of him in Giants jerseys, him in Steelers jerseys. He was stirring the pot a little bit.
I didn't really get into I don't follow these guys on social media because it's always something. And I don't know. I just keep it sports.
See, I am not a big fan of a player who's frustrated going to social media rather than talking about it. Like, if you have an issue and you want to bring it up to the team, or you want to bring it up in an interview or something at a podium and mention it, that's one thing. Don't go to social media about it. I don't like that, because it makes it look like you can't talk to someone on your team, and it just causes problems. And yes, I am talking about Deebo Samuel. That's what I'm talking about.
I get you. I got to say, in this day and age, a lot of these people grew up with social media. Because I was thinking about this the other day, too. Like, I hate when people use social media for any type of passive-aggressive tweets and things of that nature. LeBron is real famous for doing this himself.
Subtweeting.
Yeah, right. Subtweeting and all that. And it's just because these guys grew up in the era of social media and this form of communication, this is all they kind of know from that expressive point of view. This is how they get their opinions out. This side topic, but if you were a GM or coach, would you put any restrictions on the social media usage?
I would say you can't go out and air things like that about the team. You can't do that. If you're going to start talking bad about the team, then you're going to lose your spot, or you might have to get, pushed down the chart a little bit. Because in Deebo's case specifically, I'm going to focus on him because I'm a Niners fan. In his case specifically, his whole thing this season is he's not doing well. And it's not just talked about by fans. It's talked about by analysts. It's talked about by sports media and sports radio. They've all mentioned he's struggling. And he tweeted out, "I'm not struggling. I'm just not getting the ball." And I don't see where that's true, because it seems like Kyle Shanahan goes out of his way to give him 5, 6, 7 targets a game. And you're not doing anything with it. You know what he did last week? The Niners drubbed the Bears 38-13. And Deebo had, I think he had 3 carries for less than 30 yards. And he had 2 or 3 catches for less than 30 yards. Like, what are you doing? Jawan Jennings had 6 catches. He had 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. George Kittle had 7 targets. He had 151 yards. So what's the problem, Deebo? You had 6 looks. You turn it into less than 100 yards. I think less than 60 yards total. He does most of his work as a return man. So I don't want to hear this. You're not getting the ball. Like, the Niners already throw at one of the lowest rates in the league. And if Jennings is getting 6 targets, Kittle's getting 7 or more, and he's better than you because he's more reliable than you are. Where do you expect your targets to come from? Because you're already getting 6, 7 looks a game. Plus you're a return man now. I don't understand what he wants. He's trying to justify his lack of production by saying he hasn't gotten the ball. If anything, he needs to be getting the ball less. Because right now, all them little screen passes, he has, throw those to Garendo. Throw those to a running back. Throw those to anyone else that's not Deebo Samuel. No defense is fooled by it. And honestly, as much as I love the dude, he might need to be on another team next year. This is how much.
He got 79% of the snap calls. We could talk about the Rams and Bears game because you did make a whole statement last week telling Coach Shanahan that this was a must win, and they did come out.
It was a must win
very heavily, 38-13 win. And you talk about Deebo possibly trading him off, but in the grand scheme of this, is this a good win for the 49ers to help keep their season alive, or are we just slowly tending to a gunshot wound that's not going to get healed this year?
The real question is this a good win or was it just the Bears? And
I don't really look at it that way.
That test will be put to that test in just tomorrow because they play the Rams. The Rams, who also won, just annihilating in points on offense with the Bills there. 44 points against the Bills. Now, this is the same Bills team that the Niners struggled against. It was in the snow, but still, 44 points. That's wild. And I don't know if you saw the clip, but in the Rams locker room post-game, Matt Stafford himself said, now let's go beat the fucking Niners. All right. Now they are ready for this game.
I ain't say, but I mean, hey, let's not. Okay, 44 points. That is impressive. But the Bills also put up 42.
42. That is true.
I mean, it was the highest scoring game of the week. So we can look at that offense and say it's dangerous, which is true. But that defense was sort of. Granted, Josh
defense
Allen
is what won them the game too, though.
Well, yeah, I guess in the last scheme of it, Josh Allen being the 3 rushing touchdown QB, that was a big win.
Right.
But sticking with the Niners in this case, does that offensive flurry give you concern going against the Rams?
Not as much because this comes down to McVay versus Shanahan. They're going to be so busy trying to out-scheme each other. They're not going to. I don't think this game's going to be nearly as high scoring. I think 44 points, 38 points each. I don't think that's happening. I think this maxes out around 24 to 27 each. Because that's usually what the Niners Rams have been the past few times.
That's what it was this past week. Week 3 was 27-24. So
yeah, and we had that game in the bag until that last drive or two. So, but this is going to come down to, so what happened, by the way, I did want to speak on the whole must-win thing. Now, I'm not taking credit for any motivation, but the Niners did state at their podiums post-game that they had an offensive team meeting with Kyle and all the players on the offense, and they actually had guys speak up that normally didn't speak up about what was missing, what they thought needed to change. Kyle took what he heard, and he turned it into an entire new game plan. And they went out and did what they did. Now, if they do it again, then I'll be more convinced. As of right now, I am impressed that they put up that many points, but it was against a rookie who didn't have a solid coach. He didn't have a coordinator. It was the interim coach's first game as the interim coach, and I don't think he was prepared for it. So I will say it's impressive, but I am not sold that the Niners are back yet. No.
Okay. All right. It'll be interesting to see how they prepare for the game going against the Rams, which is tomorrow. And I mean, the division rival games are always the toughest in that case. And you talked about Kyle Shanahan, and that will lead us over to a conversation about coaching hot seats. Because you know what? Some coaches may be treading on thin ice when it comes to how the season pans out. Some coaches like Doug Peterson, Mike McCarthy, possibly. I don't know. Maybe even Kyle Shanahan. Let me ask you, being a Niners fan, we'll keep it in that realm. Do you find Shanahan's seat to be secure, or do you think the team may be looking to possibly move forward?
I think at the end of this season, he's not going to get fired. I don't think he's getting fired this year. I think if this happens next year, and if for whatever reason the Niners don't make the playoffs next season, I think he gets to let go. Because you've shown, Kyle, you can make an offensive game plan without some of these guys that you say you need. Because as a reminder, there was no McCaffrey in that game. There was no Ayuk in that game. All right, and Kyle still made it work. He made it work with the guys he had, which is what you have to do. Now, the Bears, granted, they seemed a little undisciplined, They do have a top 10 passing defense, and their O-line needs a lot of work, but that's neither here nor there. I don't think Kyle is in any danger of losing his job, even if the Niners don't make the playoffs, because right now it looks like they're not going to. I think he has the built-in excuse of, oh, well, Christian was hurt all year. Brandon Ayuk had his holdout. Trent Williams had his holdout. A lot of injuries. That'll keep him going for this year. The players have spoken up for him. George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. These guys have both come out in praise of Kyle. So I think even if we don't make the playoffs, Kyle's job is fine. Now, when you talk about Mike McCarthy, on the other hand, he did have Dak Prescott speak out about him in a positive way. And for anyone who listens to Micah Parsons' podcast, he spoke out in a positive light against Coach McCarthy. I mean, but at the same time, the Cowboys, I see why Mike McCarthy's there. Jerry Jones wants a guy who's not going to give him any trouble, because the Cowboys fans I've seen saying fire Mike McCarthy and hire Bill Belichick. Belichick's not going to listen to Jerry Jones. It's just not going to happen.
Oh, well,
he is too old, too still.
Belichick took the job in NYC.
He took the job at UNC. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Now it's just whether or not they agree to his 400-page terms of agreement. But it looks like he will be coaching college.
So if on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say Kyle's job is at like a 4 in the heat level. By the end of this season, it's not going to get much higher. Mike McCarthy's, in my opinion, should be at like an 8. And Doug Peterson should be running out of the house because it's on fire. Really? All right.
Interesting.
I think he needs to go. I think he's got to go. This team looks bad.
Other coaches: Brian Daboll, Antonio Pierce, Zach Taylor, Kevin Stefanski, possibly. I will say this for Mike McCarthy, just for his sake. Dak was hurt. He's hurt this year. Granted, even in the year Dak was originally hurt, they finished 6-10 that year. I think they may be on pace to finish this year. Well, I mean, right now they're 5-8. They can also finish 6-10 again.
Yeah,
so you have that. Plus, you do have other players coming out to back for him, like you mentioned, Michael Parsons, Dak Prescott, and Jerry Jones. He's not quick to change that fast. Mike McCarthy's only been there for about 5 years. His record in the regular season is 30-20. His playoffs ain't great, but Dallas' internal run just isn't great. So I don't know. Give me another coach that's the same way.
I mean, to be fair, Mike McCarthy's not very good against the 49ers, and he's run into the 49ers a lot in the playoffs. So.
Well, I get it. Just besides the 49ers, just in general. Like his playoff run with the Cowboys playoff run is just not great.
Yeah.
Potential head coaching replacements. You still got Kellen Moore. You still got Eric Bieniemy.
It would be very interesting if Kellen Moore ended up as the head coach of the Cowboys, considering he was their OC, and then they booted him out of there saying he was the problem on the offense, and now the offense doesn't look as good. So even when Prescott was playing.
That's the funny thing about it. He could come back. I don't know. So in the grand scheme of it, with all the coaches I named, you would say that it is Doug Peterson that's in the biggest hot seat of all the coaches?
I think he is. I think he has the most complete team around him of those guys that you mentioned that is not succeeding. Because I don't think the Giants have a complete team. They haven't had a solid quarterback since Daboll's been there. They lost Saquon. Their best receiver right now is Malik Neighbors. He is a rookie. They don't really.
They let him.
They did. It's fair. They
could have kept.
They did let him walk, and they paid the wrong guy. That's what happened. They paid the wrong, and now neither one of them are on the team. That's hilarious. But I don't think that was all Daboll's call. When it comes to who did you mention? Zach Taylor. I don't think Zach Taylor's going to lose his job, but their defensive coordinator will, because the offense on the Bengals is fine. It's the defense that is absolute garbage. They can't stop anything. Hell, if they didn't get that lucky punt recovery against the Cowboys, they probably would have lost that game. Like, that was a one-score game.
The guy who's the defensive coordinator, his name is Lou Anarumo. He's been the defensive coordinator for them since 2019.
Well, what happened then? What's different about this year compared to his previous years?
Do they have injuries? I'm not really following the Bengals like that.
I don't remember hearing of any superstar players that went down for them this year.
Well, how many players do they have on defense? Because they have.
That's the thing. I think the best defender was Jesse Bates, and he's on the Falcons now.
Okay, but they're missing him, so count him
out.
But they have at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 players on IR.
Oof.
And then a lot of the other ones are out. So you got that's a cornerback, Josh Newton. Well, he participated. He's going to be fine. Charlie Jones, that's a wide receiver. Defensive tackle. They do have a couple of injuries to deal with. I don't know what else you'll say about the defense, but the Bengals don't look great. They may let him go. He's been there for a long time. Teams could let people go who's been there for a while.
Yeah, I think they like Zach Taylor, and I think because of how effective Joe Burrow and the offense is, I think that'll keep him around for maybe a season longer. But that defense is their main issue because according to Fox, they are currently ranked 26th on defense, according to Fox.
Okay, that's still bottom tier.
Yeah, it's still bottom half of the league.
Bottom half of mid-tier, I guess you could say, getting close to the mid.
Yeah, no one below them except two teams actually looked solid, and that's the Rams at 27 and the Buccaneers at 28. That's because they both also had potent offenses. They're the same team as the Bengals. The Bengals just don't have solid defense to show for it. I don't know what it is.
They go against tough teams because they went against the Chiefs. That could be tough. Ravens put up 41 points against them. That hurts your stats. Eagles put up 37 points against them. Ravens put up 35 against them. Chargers put up 34. Giants put up 7. Patriots put up 16. Browns put up 14. But I mean, when you get games against Pittsburgh that put up 44 points against you, that hurts.
But see, this is where I get into the numbers might not tell the whole story because you know who the top 3 teams are on defense right now, according to Fox? The Eagles are number 1, the Titans are number 2, and the 49ers are number 3 on defense.
It's all about matchups.
It is really all about matchups. Funny how that works. Jets are 4th on defense, by the way.
Well, what about Antonio Pierce? Do you feel like he'll keep his job? Because I do feel like Tom Brady's going to come in and change this regime, and I don't know if Pierce is going to be secure.
I am not sure that anyone in that front office is safe. I don't know if it's just the head coach. I know he was like the interim head coach for a while. I don't know if they officially made him the head coach or not, but I don't think he stays. No, I think he goes. I think whoever their GM is, they might go too. I know the Raiders made waves as being one of the only fully African-American offices. I think the GM, the president, and the coach were Black, and they were the only teams that had that. But now Tom Brady is involved as, part owner. I think they are going to clean house. And unfortunately, no, I don't think Antonio Pierce keeps his job.
Oh, wait a minute. Ooh, a lot of that office is white. We'll see. It is going to be interesting because they are going to need a lot of changes. They still need a quarterback, let alone
they do, yeah. Well, they can't keep a quarterback healthy now, and as it is, Gardner Minshew's hurt. AJ O'Connell got carted off the field last week or the week before. It's a bad situation in Vegas. They lost Devontae Adams. Every good player, every standout player the Raiders have had in like the past 10 years, something's either happened to them or they're off the team. Like it's. Amari Cooper, not on the Raiders. Khalil Mack, not on the Raiders. Derek Carr, as mid as he is, not on the Raiders. Devontae Adams is gone. Like, what does this team have to? Josh Jacobs is gone. He's on the Packers. Like, they don't.
Draft. Yeah, I mean, this is a rebuild. This is what a lot of people talk about. This is what a rebuild looks like. Is that really what you want your team to go through? Just for all the people's blow the whole thing up? I'm going to tell you right now as a Titans fan, you don't want to blow a whole thing up if you can possibly help it. You want to help maintain at least some form of stability while you get through these rocky roads. But right now, that's what the Raiders are.
But in order to do that,
looks like they're just restarting.
Yeah, because you have to have something to build around. Who are their build around players? That's going to be the real question.
No, they don't have any. That's what I'm saying.
They
This is
have
what it
their
looks like when a
their
team has nothing. This is what a team
because
looks like.
I can only think of two solid players on the Raiders right now. That's Brock Bowers, the tight end, and Max Crosby. It's really about it for me. I don't know if there's anyone else.
Okay, well, you got Jacoby Myers.
He wasn't a star. He was a cast off from the Patriots.
Well, I hear you. I mean, you're gonna have players like that. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, like that's what I'm saying.
This is what I'm saying though.
Overall, if you have a team that has nothing,
You're going to become the Raiders, where they are ground up. They need a coach, they need QB, receivers, defensive players. They're 2-11. They have this is a white canvas. This is where you can take it and make it whatever you want. The problem is they play in the toughest division. When you look at
They
the
do.
West. That's what's
Three
gonna
of
make
their teams are
ability-
good right now. Yeah.
This is going to make their road to success difficult, especially when all the quarterbacks are young, from Bo Nix, Mahomes, and Justin Herbert. It's going to be a rough road. We'll see what happens with the Raiders. But lastly, what about Kevin Stefanski? Should he?
Oh,
be on
the
hot seat?
Browns? He's the Browns coach, right?
Yes.
No, see, the Browns, they have a solid roster. Whoever was in charge of that Deshaun Watson contract hurt the team a good bit. That they're going to feel that for a while because they can't cut him without taking a hit. They said they can't really play him because he's hurt, and even when he was playing, he wasn't playing well. It was just a bad deal. Does he get fired? What was their record last year?
okay, give me a second here. Previous season,
Their record was 11-6.
They were 11-6 last year. Wow.
yeah, they lost in the wild card to the Houston.
Texans.
They did. That's because they had Flacco last year. That's right. Flacco
Yeah,
came
in
and
had a
revitalized their
pretty
offense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now they have Winston, who's not. He's a nice story. It's a fun watch, but he's not winning. It's the problem. No, I would give him one more year. I would say it's warm, but I don't think he gets fired this year.
Wow.
I
3
don't.
and 10. 3 and 10.
Yeah, that's bad. Yes, that's a bad turnaround. That's worse than the 11-6. You can't even reverse it. That would be 6-11.
They have 5-game losing streak this year. After the loss to the Cowboys, they won against the Jaguars and they lost to the Giants, the Raiders, the Commanders, the Eagles, and the Bengals. They lost to a litany of bad teams.
That is fair. That is fair.
I don't know. I'm not the one to say a person should be fired.
I don't listen. As I mentioned before, you have Eric Bieniemy. We ever see if he gets a job. D'Amico Ryans, if you want a defensive head coach. The Broncos defensive coordinator. He ain't doing too bad this year either.
Who's that? Who's their defensive coordinator?
His name is Ejiro, Ejiro, Evero.
Interesting. Sounds like an AI generated name, but I'll
He's
take
a
it.
legitimate person.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a fascinating ordeal to look at from a standpoint. We'll see.
I don't know. We'll see. I think a good bit of these coaches may end up losing their jobs. I think Mike McCarthy, ironically enough, may be the same.
He's going to keep his job. Yeah.
I just don't see Jerry Jones changing the tide. He's always reluctant to do such a thing. And because of that, it ends up costing him money and team success.
Yeah.
So
The
unless he changes
Yorks,
that mindset, I don't see it.
The Yorks had put out a statement saying that at this current time, they have no intention on relieving Kyle Shanahan of his duties next year.
All right.
That's at this current time. Now, they did say that before the Bears game, and then he won the Bears game. So I think he might be okay if he keeps winning. If he starts losing, if they lose out the rest of the way, there's 4 games left. He loses out the rest of the way, and we end up 6-11. He might lose his job. That's pretty bad. But again, this is the same thing that happened the last time the Niners went to the Super Bowl and lost. Their following season, they were 6-10. That was before injuries
played a part in that. I remember that. If there's any bit of it, 3 coaches: Doug Peterson, Brian Daboll, Antonio Pierce. If I had to make a guess, those are the 3. Everyone else.
Dude, Brian Daboll wasn't Brian Daboll coach of the year last year?
Okay, and didn't Darvin Ham win the in-season tournament?
He did.
None of that means anything if a team. The Giants are going to look to restructure themselves as well. That's why Antonio Pierce is on this list for me. It's a restructuring ordeal. They're going to look to destroy and rebuild. They just got rid of the front office. They got
They
rid of the
did.
quarterback. I mean, if he keeps his job, boy, he not only has a lucky rabbit foot, he ate that rabbit and kept the foot.
Because there's no way he should keep his job after this, considering how they're cleaning house.
It's a wild thing to see how fast the team can fall, because they were just in the playoffs, weren't they? That was 2 years ago. They were in the playoffs. Yeah, they didn't make the playoffs last year.
No, they were 6-10 last year.
Yeah.
Before that, they were 9-7-1.
And they made the playoffs though with that record. Yeah, to the Vikings, right?
Yeah, they beat the division and they got to the wild card. But I mean, they also had Saquon Barkley.
They did, because I remember Daniel Jones ran a Statue of Liberty in that game, which is you don't see a lot of.
No.
But no, he's gone now. Now he's on the Vikings, funnily enough.
Yeah, we'll see, because
Sam Darnold, who's having a phenomenal year.
He does look good in this system. I'll give him that.
He does look good. In fact, we'll take this moment and segue right over to the next section of top 10 teams of the week. Here's what we discussed: the top 10 teams based on last week's performance, comparing them to every other team in the league and neutral playing ground to see who will be the best team standing tall if they were all to compete against each other. Chris, go ahead and give us the top 10. First, number 10.
Number 10, and this might be a little contentious for some people, but a lot of these teams have the same record. So I had 3 teams I was flirting with because they all have the same record. I've seen a lot out of all 3 of them. But I'm going with Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos at number 10. I mean, Sean Payton, maybe he found his guy. Maybe he found it. Maybe he needed a young, moldable guy that he can fit into his system, his offense. He still has more to learn, but he's arguably one of the more successful rookies this season. Up there with Jaden Daniels, which I would have put at number 10, by the way. They're not in there. They are number 11, if you want to count numbers. But that was the argument I was having between those 2 teams. And I think that currently the Broncos look better than the Commanders do.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Well, does that make him a better quarterback than
overall?
Yeah, just out of
curiosity. This is a contentious statement. I think Jaden Daniels is a better quarterback. I think Bo Nix has a better coach coaching him than Jaden Daniels does. Yes, that is a knock on Dan Quinn. I don't care for Dan Quinn.
I see that. And you said it's we got to get to that one day. With your
He's a defensive coach who has bad defensive teams. I don't like that. All right.
Yeah, they get the job done though, so I don't know. It's like, hey, he's been to a Super Bowl, and even then, you know who gets the blame for that loss.
Yeah, that's another reason why I don't like him. Because why is it not Dan Quinn's fault? Whatever.
Because his defense did a good job shutting down Brady, but nonetheless,
for the first half they did. What happened in the second half?
Oh, they ran the ball.
Whatever.
Moving on to number 9.
Number 9, funnily enough, you did say this division was tough, and we are staying there because Jim Harbaugh's Chargers are sticking around at number 9. I like what I see out of him, man. I don't know what to say. Like, Justin Herbert has this huge arm, but he's not asked to use it a lot. He's not asked to use it as much as he used to. Now, granted, some could argue that his potential is not being maximized. But other people argue you are giving him more time to be a quarterback and learn how to play the game properly, because he didn't have a coach that did that before. And yes, I am knocking on a coach who's currently on my team's coaching staff. It's Brandon Staley. Is it a coincidence that Brandon Staley left the Chargers and they got better and he joined the Niners and they got worse? I don't know. All I know is Jim Harbaugh is leading this team to the playoffs. Now, what they do in the playoffs, I do want to see. J.K. Dobbins has not been 100%. He has been their runner. He has had a bad luck with his career with running. Hopefully they can maintain. But right now, they're number 9 on my list.
Okay, not too bad of a pick right there. In that regard, let's go ahead and get straight to number 8.
8.
Number 8 kind of makes me sad because I was a big proponent of this team, and they just haven't shown me ever since I started being vocal about it. Now, Chris Broussard, he has his whole love for this team, has his whole, he calls their quarterback J Lo. I am more on the page right now over the past couple of weeks, more of a J No. And it's the Green Bay Packers. They're sliding. They're sliding down my list. They're still there, but damn it, Packers, you're not showing me what you need to be showing. I'm sticking up for you after you beat my team, and you start looking bad after that. Stop doing that. All right. I believe they can still do something, but I don't believe they're a top 5, top 6 team anymore. And until they show me otherwise, maybe the inexperience of their wide receivers. They have 4 like solid pieces, but they don't seem to know how to use them at the right time. Josh Jacobs has boosted them, but they're still number 8. I can't put them higher than that right now.
Interesting. But I mean, they're losing. Well, they beat the Dolphins and they lost to the Lions, but that Lions game was real close. We're going to talk about that Lions
They should have.
game.
They should have won that game.
Oh, there's a little bit of information towards that game that I figured out, found out yesterday, somewhat this morning, but we'll get back to them because we're going to be talking about the NFC North in a little bit in general, I think.
Oh, okay.
This is a very
That was an
fascinating
NFC North chat.
I don't know who the best team is. Some say it's the Lions. We'll see. But okay, moving on to number 7.
And like I said, this is a point of contention for me because I wanted to put the Packers here at 7, but I just don't think they could beat this team, and that's the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are at 7 for me. I wanted to put them higher, but based on how the list shakes out, I can't put them higher right now. I mentioned this to you before the show, and I am sticking with it. I know Ravens fans might not like this. I don't think the Ravens are as good as people say they are this year. I just don't. I think Lamar is. Yes, Lamar is great. But just like on the Bengals, Joe Burrow is great. I don't know about the rest of the team around him. And I think that's going to hurt them going into the playoffs because of who they have to play to get to the big dance. Like if in the AFC, you have powerhouse contenders. And I'm not saying the NFC doesn't have them, but I don't trust this Ravens team to beat the Chiefs in crunch time. I don't trust this team to beat the Bills again when it matters. Yes, they beat the Bills this year, but it was week 5. Can you do it now? I don't know if they could. Can they beat the Steelers? They haven't shown me that they can. So they can't get higher than 7 for me. I want to believe in Lamar Jackson. I do. I really want to believe in him. But past playoff performances, the current state of the defense, their inability to get stuff, like they should have beaten the Eagles. They should have, but they didn't. I just can't put them higher right now. I'm sorry. Like I like them, but I can't. The numbers don't lie to me, and they're sitting at 7.
Numbers don't lie,
but they don't always tell the full story. But
they don't. It's interesting. Yeah, it's a rich tapestry, is what it is. That's what it.
Oh, that's what it always is. All right. So what were we at? Number 7?
6. That was number 7. Yeah.
Number 6.
And this is why I can't put them at number 6 or higher, because the Steelers sit at number 6 for me. Russell Wilson. I mean, I was told that this dude was washed. He was done when he was in Denver. You know, they let him cook and he burnt the kitchen down. But here we are in Pittsburgh. They're at 10-3. They have only lost, once since Russell's been there as a starter.
Oh.
They look great. I mean, their defense is clicking. Their offense is humming. You know, George Pickens as attitude of much of an attitude problem as he has kind of shown up when he needed to. Pat Freiermuth, who was all but kind of gone from the stat sheets for a while there, has now resurfaced under Russell Wilson. And you need that tight end security blanket. I really admire what Coach Tomlin is doing with this team. How far they can go is still yet to be determined. We do have a big matchup coming up for them in a couple weeks. And I know how Tomlin can get when he has that game circled on his calendar. So I'm hoping he's actually prepared for that game and not looking past his current opponents to get there, because they do have the Chiefs on Christmas Day.
Excellent. That is going to be an interesting game when they do show up. I also am looking forward to the I'm sorry, to that rematch against the Ravens coming up the week before on December 21st. So that's a decent stretch. In fact, just to kind of run it out, the next 4 games for the Steelers is going to be good because they got the Eagles in Philadelphia, Ravens at Baltimore, at home for the
Man.
Chiefs, at home for the Bengals. So
Ooh.
this may be a pretty interesting run to see how they pan out. But
Let me tell you
going to
something. If
Yeah.
real quick, before we go to the top 5, if the Steelers pull out 3 wins in this next 4-game stretch, watch out. That's all I'm saying. Watch out because they could go all the way because that's a rough stretch of games coming up heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, it would be it'd be interesting to see how they pan out because
I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers manage to make their way to an AFC Championship game. They can very much do so. All right.
well, moving on to the number 5 team.
Who do you have as the number 5 team breaking into the top?
Oh man, number 5. I feel like the AFC fans are not going to like a lot of this list. And granted, he had a fantastic performance. Granted, it wasn't a loss. And based on how the rest of the league shook out, I have to put the Buffalo Bills at 5. And I know that is not going to sit well with a lot of people. But I'm sorry, the Rams were not a great team when you headed into their house. And they scored 44 points on you. All right. Now, granted, one of them, which arguably was the one that sealed the game, was a defensive touchdown. I'll give you that because it was a blocked punt that led to a touchdown. But still, that even if you take those 7 points away, that's what 37 points that the Rams put on you. And the Rams are not a great team. They're a middling team right now. They're our team where if they got better, I'd be a little more nervous. But no, that's unacceptable, Buffalo. You can't do that. I don't care how many touchdowns Josh Allen scored. You beat my team. You shellacked my team. But then you let the Rams score 44. No, you have to drop for that. Besides the fact that other teams did well until they show me otherwise. That's a couple times this year, Bills. You've had some really weird defensive performances. You're still in the top 5, but you are number 5.
Interesting. All right. Well, hey, that's not too bad. Top 5, just at number 5 is the Bills. In that regard, who is rounding out the number 4 slot?
They got replaced because the Bills were at 4. They got replaced by a team that I've been reluctant to give praise to. But I do welcome Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings in at the number 4 spot. I mean, I can't. No, I don't want to accept it. All right. I saw maybe it is anger because I saw Sam Darnold play on my team with all of the Avengers, as someone would say. And he didn't look good, but now he looks great. Now, granted, they might have arguably have the best wide receiver duo in the league. And that's saying a lot considering you have teams that have solid wide receivers. But Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, man. Falcons, I get it. The Falcons weren't fantastic, but 5 touchdowns. Falcons, 5. 3 for Addison, 2 for Jefferson. Justin Jefferson, by the way, most yards of any wide receiver in their first 5 seasons. And considering he missed almost half of last year, that's impressive. But no, the team looks good. Sam Darnold looks good. I do have some concerns about Aaron Jones. He has shown a little bit of stone hands this year. And of course, he is getting older. He has missed a little bit of time too. I do think they should look into getting a running back. I know of one that they could use. That's in Santa Clara. That's all I'm saying. I think if they do get younger at running back, or if they get a harder running back to assist Aaron Jones, would be a nice compliment to him. I think the Vikings could make a little bit more noise. I don't like the fact that I have to watch Sam Darnold be successful, but I'm not going to argue with it anymore. They're 11-2. Like you can't deny it after a certain point. Now, I don't think that they are better than the 3 teams above them, but I do think they're worthy of being in the top 5.
I will never understand where the hate for Sam Darnold comes from with everyone. People spent the entire season waiting for this dude to fail. And I'm like, what did Sam Darnold do to everyone waiting for him to fail? But I'm going to get to that in a moment. Let's hit
Well,
it.
go ask a Jets fan to see what the Jets Sam Darnold did to them, because
Oh no,
they're the ones that are more upset.
that sounds like okay. You know what? I guess they're upset at the Seahawks. So look at Geno Smith. I guess they're upset at the. That sounds like a Jets issue. Look at Aaron Rodgers. All right, that sounds like a Jets problem. Look
Sound
inward,
like
Jets
sour
fans,
grapes.
not outward. Okay, figure that part out. Moving on to number 3.
Number 3, you know, a lot of people have dropped the Chiefs to number 3. I'm not going to do that. I'm not, because number 3 for me is the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to put them there. Granted, they are 11-2. Granted, they haven't lost since they were 2-2. But you know something? When a team is winning and all I hear about them is, oh, the coach is having problems. He's yelling at the fans. And now we got this weird thing going on between the defender opening his mouth about the passing issue and the issue between players on the offense. That's not a good recipe going forward. Right now, the only positive thing I'm hearing coming out of Philadelphia is how good Saquon is. And granted, he should be in the MVP conversation. I don't care how many times the team wins. If you're starting to have dysfunction this late in the season, you're not going to hold up well going into the playoffs. I can't put them higher than 3 because they can't beat the top 2 teams ahead of them. If you're going to have issues internally, you struggled against the Panthers at home. You struggled against the Jaguars at home. When you played the Buccaneers, who had their best receivers in, you lost badly. You barely beat the Browns, who are a 3-win team, and then you ran and chirped at your own fans about it. No, I don't believe that this team has the mental stability to take it to the promised land. They might have the physical attributes, but I don't think mentally they're prepared to make a deep run.
Ooh, that's interesting. Okay, but this is a week by week thing because that almost sounds like a good reason to put them at number 6. But it is a week by week thing because the Eagles they are a good record, so they have a good record.
I was fully prepared to have them at 2, and then they struggled to beat the Panthers, but I couldn't drop them below 4, so they're staying at 3. If they have another weird showing again, or if someone under them has a better showing, they're going to drop again. I don't care if they win.
Well, that's fair. All right, in that case, if you got the Eagles at 3, that means there's only 2 slots left.
There are only 2 slots, and there's only 2 teams left that I have not mentioned that are in that top echelon.
All right, so he's going to explain why the Jaguars at number 2. Let's go.
No, it's not the Jags.
All right, we all love
I remember.
Bay. Go baby.
I mean, they might win their division. That's a different conversation. All right. But no, number 2, it has no choice but to be the Detroit Lions. I am not putting them at number 1. No,
Detroit
not
Lions
doing
at
it.
number 2. Wow, this is a good one.
They did beat the Packers, yes, but it was on a Dan Gamble win. It was a gambling win. They went on. Yes, they did it. They went for 4th down 4 times in that game and got it. But even in the game sealing play, they almost fucked that up. It was right there. They had a bad snap. Jared Goff fell down. He managed to get the ball out. They even had people saying, "Oh, his knee was down." He wasn't down. Whatever. He wasn't touched.
Not officially, he wasn't. No.
But you live by the sword, you die by the sword, Dan. Like, I want to believe in you. I know you're America's darling. You're the story, the old hometown. Yeah, let's all rally behind this team. I'm not rallying behind the coach that keeps doing that. I'm not going to do it. I don't care if it works a certain number of times. The law of averages will come to bite you in the ass. Last year, it waited until the NFC title game to rear its ugly head. Don't let it happen again, Dan. Just don't. I want to believe in you. I really do. I would love to see Dan take his team, biting all their kneecaps all the way to that Super Bowl podium. But I don't think they're going to do it as long as they keep gambling this hard. I just can't see it.
I do want to preface that whole situation. So Richard Sherman talked about this. He interviewed, I think it was Jared Goff. Jared Goff initiated that fourth down drive. Dan Gamble, as you call him, was going to go for the field goal. But
Interesting.
Jared Goff had the whole like, man, I really want to go for that again. And Campbell's like, oh, you want to go for it? All right, fine. We'll go for it. That was not the coach's call. That was Jared Goff showing a bit of frustration and wanting to take that initiative. So one could argue his behavior is rubbing off on the team. I think I mentioned it before, where the defensive player even said, yeah, you know what? When we see a fourth down, we're like, he's probably going to go for it. That's just the mentality this team has. Maybe that will to want it, that will to win could be that fuel to get him to that Super Bowl. Who knows?
No, you know what? I'll give him that. I did not know that. All right, that's fair. It doesn't change my opinion enough to move them to number one, but it does lend credence to the fact that yes, this team believes in its coach. And that's not something a lot of teams can say. I'm not sure if you asked all of the Eagles if they believe in Nick Sirianni, they would say yes. I'm almost certain if you asked all of the Niners if they believe in Kyle Shanahan, that not all of them would say yes.
Debo would say yeah.
Of course he would. That's his buddy, all right? That's his friend.
Debo loves his coach. Let that man coach.
Interestingly enough, you know what? There's two players there. Debo Samuel was frustrated. He went to Twitter. George Kittle was frustrated. He mentioned it in passing in the post-game interview, and you saw what happened the next game. All right.
Oh, I hear you. All right. Well, in that case, I guess we might as well just roll out the red carpet. The king is back at the top of the mountain.
I have no choice.
Number one.
They're the two-time defending Super Bowl Devil Magic champions. Like, it's to the point now where you almost want to tune in just to see how they're going to win this week. They won off of a doink. All right. I know Bears fans somewhere are just traumatized just seeing doinks win games as opposed to a doink costing them a playoff spot or a spot in the playoffs. It's week one. It was Isaiah Likely's toe just on the line that got them the game. Week two, last second PI that gave them the field position to win the game on a field goal. Week three, PI not called against the Falcons, which ended up having the ball turned over on downs. Whatever week they played the Broncos, a blocked field goal to end the game, a bad snap against the Raiders, a 33-yard broken coverage run against the Panthers to set up that game-winning field goal, and now a doink to get in. You know, at some point you would have to think a team's luck is going to run out. But I haven't seen it yet. All right, and until I see it, I can't fight it anymore. I'm going to put them at number one. I know everyone else or most other media publications, including analysts like your Cowherds, analysts like your Nick Wrights, of course, he might have the Chiefs at number one. He does, actually. But everyone else has the Lions at one. But I can't fight it anymore. They have the best coach in the league. I will not say here otherwise. They have the best quarterback in the league. You can't prove me that otherwise. They don't have the best running game. They don't have the best wide receivers. They don't necessarily have the best star secondary. They have one of the better defenders. But overall, they don't have the best team. But they have one of the best records, and they just keep winning. I can't fight it anymore. They're number one.
Interesting. So I just want to put this in context. Your two number one teams, all they're at the top, you feel as if a lot of that is based on luck. Dan Gamble, lucky with his fourth down calls, and the Chiefs extremely lucky with the last second wins.
Yeah. Right. But that's the thing. I can't argue against it because I see the results. The Lions, I will say, for as many defenders as they have out, they are very fortunate it is not also on the offensive side of the ball because their offense is essentially intact. They still have one of the better setups as far as running backs and wide receivers go, and they have a solid tight end. You can't really ask for much more than that. And that's the thing. Mahomes doesn't have that. Mahomes has Kelsey, yeah, but he doesn't have a solid two-back system like Gibbs and Montgomery. He doesn't have an Amon-Ra St. Brown level receiver. He doesn't. Hopkins, I thought. Yeah, he has DeAndre Hopkins now, yeah, but he's not as fast as Amon-Ra. He's not as good as Amon Ra currently is.
Well, he may not be doing as much. I don't know.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe they're just kind of resting on the gun. Maybe they're not putting out
But
all
it's
the, some.
sleepwalking.
No, well, sleepwalking based on the wins, you can make a case. But do you really think Andy Reid has gone into his full arsenal of plays?
No, that's what Nick Wright said. Nick Wright says they're not using the plays they know that work because they're saving them for when they need them.
I
That's what
mean,
he said.
all I know is that
They are 12-1. So
They
even if
are.
you're not winning in the most glorious fashion with a couple of block hits and a couple of calls going your way, I guess in the end of it, it's like, oh well, I guess we don't need to use this today. We'll save it.
maybe.
Because it's winning games is one thing, but if they were winning every week by a solid 10 to 13 points, that would be different. But they are almost escaping some of these games with a win. Like if they didn't block that field goal, they lose that game
Yeah, they don't
against
make
the
that field
Broncos.
goal. They lose that
They
game.
lose that game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
homeboy
If
from foot on the line. They lose that game. There's a lot of small events that can help them lose games, but I guess that's where the luck comes in, huh?
I mean that remember, this was the Vikings a couple years ago when they were winning all these one score games and the numbers said like even the was it the analytics, they said normally teams don't win all of these one score games. They just kept winning them. And eventually the law of averages caught up and they stopped winning them at the very end of the season. So people are speculating this could happen to the Chiefs, but no disrespect to the Vikings. They didn't have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Like that is a combination that as long as those two are there and they're healthy, I feel like they can turn it on when they need to.
Interesting. All right. Well, that was the top 10. I do have to push back on a few of the top 10, at least maybe your reasonings, because the Broncos, I guess, I ain't really going to push them out of it. Although I wouldn't put them there. If I had to put another team, I might have put Washington. I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess the Broncos.
they were. I flirted with it.
Yeah, I'm not too mad at it. Your Chargers, I think the Chargers should be higher. I think the Chargers are better than the Packers. I mentioned before, I don't like the Packers. I don't think they're that good compared to other teams as a team. And that's the grand scheme of it. I want to emphasize the word team because I feel like that's what's missing in the discussion about the Vikings. It's not just Sam Darnold. They are top 10 on defense and offense.
Yeah, Brian Flores does have that defense looking good.
They are a cohesive team. And that's what I like about the Vikings. And I will argue they may actually be the best team in the NFC. Just might be. In the grand scheme of it, the Eagles are in disarray. And we talk about the Lions really toting the line with fate. So I don't know. I think it's between the Lions and maybe the Vikings. This is why I think the NFC North is an interesting division because the Packers can still win it. They're not out of it. They can surprise people, but based on what I've seen and how they play, I think the Vikings are a better team, but we'll see once that time comes.
They definitely are healthier than the Lions are. The Lions seem like they have to try a little bit more because, and I believe that leads into why they went for it so much on fourth down. They don't trust that their defense is going to hold because, granted, that game was 31-31 when that happened. Like they are giving up points. They beat the Bears by 3 because the Bears were inept on offense at the end. It's not like the Lions, they were blowing out certain teams, earlier on, but the longer the season goes on, those Lions blowouts aren't happening as much. And now they're winning, but they're starting to win by a lot more of the skin of their teeth rather than by domination.
I also want to point out during the stretch of that dominating win, when it was beating teams 42, 47 points, they played the Vikings in that stretch. They only won that game 31-29.
They did, yeah. It was a 2-point game, yeah.
Right? So that's what I'm saying. I think the Vikings are a lot better than what some people may imagine. I don't think it's all Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold is playing Sam Darnold football. He's just not turning it over. So at least not that.
I mean, he
did it bad in one game or two, like 5.
He was the number 3 pick in his draft. Right?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, he wasn't a scrub. It's not like he was like a 6th rounder or something like that. They just threw in there.
For reference, I hate the draft pick conversations because they aren't really reflective. I think Brock Purdy is a top tier quarterback, but he was a late round pick. We just what
That Mr. Irrelevant tax is heavy. Right?
Kurt Warner was never drafted, and he's arguably one of the top 10 QBs ever, and he was never drafted. And you have Brady at number 6. So the draft.
I mean, you can even argue Tony Romo to an extent. He was undrafted.
Trevor Lawrence, he was number 1. So I don't know what
I'm supposed
to make of those picks. So I'm not.
Baker Mayfield's the number 1 pick.
I'm not going to use that for or against Sam Darnold. All I'm saying is Sam Darnold isn't turning the ball over. So I like his game.
No, he's not.
The Ravens, I get a lot of people's concerns about the Ravens because, their defense can be in concern. But when you do have star players, we just talked about the Chiefs. As long as they have Patrick Mahomes, they don't have any great players, but that star player can help. And then plus,
but that's the thing.
At running back too, he's really
good. But my issue with the Ravens isn't the players so much. Like, I believe in Lamar, I believe in Derrick Henry. Not so sure how I'm sold on the rest of their offense, but it's also the question mark of John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh is up there almost on the level of Kyle Shanahan in his inability to hold on to a 10-plus point lead late in the game. He can't seem to do it, and that's a problem. That is a problem, especially going into the playoffs. That's a problem.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I just want to emphasize that with that firepower, the defense is a concern. I'm not saying, I have them going to the Super Bowl, and I just can't go back on that pick.
No, that's fair.
But I can understand if they don't make it that far, because that's right now my dark horse is the Steelers because they look really good. So I don't.
They do look good. Yeah.
I don't want to count out the Ravens, and the rest.
No, I don't count them out.
Like I said, I don't really have a problem with the listing. It's just I want to point out those glaring things about some of those teams, especially the Vikings. I really want to just, damn it, they are not my pick because my pick was the 49ers. But if I had to,
same here.
I don't know, man. The Vikings, I feel like can make it to an NFC title game. I don't know what happens.
Look, I'm not
from there, but I think they can get that far.
I'm not 100% out on the Vikings. I was definitely higher on the Packers initially than I was the Vikings, but I'm not out on them. It's just maybe it is part of Sam Darnold. Maybe it is the Sam Darnold thing, but I don't know. It's just I don't know if I see them doing it in the playoffs. Maybe is that Vikings past history working against them? I'm not sure. But it just doesn't mesh with me. Now, the North in general just seems to be two of the best divisions in football overall. Yeah. Because they just seem to have a lot of solid teams on both sides. But no, I'm not out 100% on the Vikings. I have them higher than most media publications do, but we have to see it. You know what they said about Purdy all that time? I need to see more. I got to see more, man. I just have to see a little bit more. All right.
No, I hear you. And again, I'm not depending on Sam Darnold. My faith is in the receivers and the defense. Again, just like the Eagles, top 10 in both. The only problem I have with the Eagles is, the locker room issues. And I mean,
that's bad.
Issues. So that I think could be their bad downside. It's really funny if the Lions mess around and lose like the next 2 games, the Vikings could take that division. The Vikings. And
interestingly enough,
we'll see.
3 of the last 4 games they have are division. It is. They got the Bears this coming Monday, the Vikings.
Okay.
The Vikings host the Bears this Monday. Then they go to Seattle. And then they come home to host the Packers. And then they end the season against Detroit.
Yeah. You, man. It's going to that NFC North is a fascinating watch. In fact, they are probably the must-watch division for me, only because it can go either way. No team has solid placing from my eyes. It could go either way. The Green Bay Packers could have around with taking it. The Bears could play spoiler for everyone and just ruin everyone's plans. Just to be the worst.
Now, I will be rooting for the Vikings in a couple weeks because I need them to beat Seattle. But if they're that good, then they shouldn't have any trouble with them. So
yeah, in fact, they will be. All 4 teams are playing against each other. It's going to be an amazing.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that to the North, where they just said you guys are all going to play each other at the end of the year. But the Niners and the NFC West are almost in that boat because we still have the Rams and the Cardinals left.
They get the Bears the 8 o'clock game on Monday. Well, that's the Monday night game. Okay.
Then there are 2 Monday night games next week.
I'll have to see the full schedule in that case. Let me see if I can.
'Cause I thought there was 2 coming up.
Let me pull up the full schedule right here. Next week, you say next week?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are. It's the Bears and the Vikings, and it's Atlanta and the Raiders.
Yeah, I'm not watching that.
2
I'm
Monday
not watching
nighters.
that
Are they
game.
doing that again? And they're doing it next week? No, they're not.
Yeah.
No, they're not. Not next week.
Week 16? No, week 15. Yeah, not week 16.
There will be no Monday nighter on week 18.
Yeah, that's the last game. That's week of the season. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact,
But
all
week
games are at 1 o'clock.
17.
All games are at 1 o'clock. There are no games after 1 o'clock on week 18.
Oh yeah, they're getting them all out the way. That's it.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's fascinating.
Week 17, that's Christmas week. Yeah, we have 2 games on Christmas Day, a game after Christmas on Thursday, and then everything else on Sunday. Is there a Monday night game? Yeah, there is. Oh, that's
Yeah.
the big one.
Lions and the
Lions
49ers.
Niners. Yeah. Which I'm going to tell you right now, even as a 49er fan, unless the Niners show that same offense that they were showing against the Bears, I don't see the Niners winning that game.
Well, I mean,
The
they still gotta
Niners,
get to, Miami.
The Lions defense, I'm not as concerned about Miami. I'm not trying to write them off, but then Miami doesn't scare me. I am far more nervous about this upcoming Rams game than I am about the Dolphins.
Well, I know. I'm just saying you got 2 other games
Yeah.
before that game. So it's
Yeah.
like, hypothetically, if they lose those 2 games, will that Lions game mean much then? If they
No,
lose
at that point, if they lose to the Rams, and let's say we lose to the Rams and the Dolphins, and that way we'd be 6-9. Yeah, at that point we would just be playing to play spoiler for the Lions. That's it.
Okay.
Like that, they'd only be playing to knock them down and see if either the Vikings or the Eagles could take that top spot.
Okay.
Which, in all honesty, I'd rather have the Lions at number 1 anyway, if that's the case, over the Vikings and the Eagles.
That makes sense. All right. Well, in that case, let's go ahead and break it down. Let's go ahead and give a quick look at week 15 and see who has the better shot in these games, playoff implications. Going first, of course, with the Thursday nighter, you have the LA Rams heading over to San Francisco. Well, not San Francisco, Santa Clara. I'm going to say San Francisco because forget it. That's where they are. That's who they are. Facing the 49ers. Who you got winning this game?
Yeah. Well, obviously, I want to pick the 49ers to win this game. This is a must win for both teams. A loss for the Niners is game over. That's it. Your season's over. That's it. Every game at this point is an elimination game. Now, the Rams are not quite in the same position. Since they are 7-6 to the Niners 6-7, the Rams could lose this game and still be in it. Because if they lose, they'll be 7-7. The Niners will be 7-7. If the Seahawks lose this week, they'll be 8-6. So it'll still be a 1-game lead for both of them. But if the Rams win and they go to 8-6 to the Niners 6-8, then it's game over. It's too much. So I think with the rejuvenation that they showed against the Bears, I think everyone's saying, oh, the Rams just put up all this on the Bills. They could be riding hot. I think we're actually in for a Rams emotional letdown. I think they might have put too much into that Bills game, and they won't be as prepared for this Thursday night game. Vegas still has the Niners winning. I'm going to go with the Niners winning 27-24.
Interesting. All right. Well, you have a score at that one. I like that. All right. Moving on to the next game. We're going to skip the Jets and Jaguars. We're going to skip the Cowboys and Panthers. We're going to skip the Commanders and Saints. We're going to talk about the Chiefs and the Browns.
Ooh.
Now, this is a 1 o'clock game. This is going to be an interesting one.
Yeah.
The Chiefs have been on a run. I don't know, man. Can Mahomes handle God's favorite soldier, God's only pick, Jameis Winston and the Cleveland Browns?
The horse is prepared for battle, but victory only comes from the Lord. I would say if there was any team, if there was any player that has the divine light that can shine just bright enough to offset some devil magic, It might be Jameis and the Browns. Now I don't see it happening. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't see it happening.
Oh, interesting. I don't know. I feel an upset coming. I feel an upset coming.
Vegas has the Chiefs on the road favored by 4.5.
Yeah, 4.5 favorite. I see that. I get that.
So in that
But
case,
the Chiefs never cover, by the way. They never
they don't. Yeah, they don't ever cover. Yeah.
There's that. But
so if there's an upset of the week, that's it. It's going to be Browns over Chiefs. A score 23-20. Browns over Chiefs. Let's take it.
Interesting. Okay, I guess. I don't know. I'm picking the Browns. I don't know what the score is going to be, but I like the Browns in that one for some reason. It speaks to me. Best I can tell you on that one. Another game to look forward to is going to be the battle in Pennsylvania. We got the Pittsburgh Steelers heading over to where it's always sunny around Philadelphia to face those dirty, stinking, gangrene Eagles.
Wow.
Yeah, I only say that because Eagles fans can be rude and mean. That's the
can be.
Yes.
They threw batteries at Santa Claus. Of course Philly, there's a wild bunch.
They are crazy fans. But who you got winning this one? Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited, going against the Hurt Locker, Jalen Hurts.
Listen here, the Eagles struggled to win over the Panthers. And again, the Panthers, arguably, if they hadn't made a mistake, would have been right there in it at the end. It wasn't so much the Eagles shutting them down as much as it is they messed up and they were more, on the inept side. On that same token, the Steelers are looking good. The Steelers are looking really good right now on defense. Russell Wilson seems like he's found himself again. Mike Tomlin has secured yet another winning season, and they're coming off of 2 pretty big wins. I'm going to go with Steelers taking the upset here. Vegas does have the Eagles favored by 4.5 or 5.5 at home. I don't see it. I think a team in turmoil is going to lose to a team that's playing more as a well-oiled machine. I think they have the better combination of running backs. Now, arguably, the Eagles have a better singular running back, but I think the combination of Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren is better overall. I think when you have 2 running backs that work well, I think that is very good. You can ask Detroit. And I think Russell Wilson's veteran savvy is better than Jalen Hurts' current whatever he's doing. I don't know what the hell is going on. Like you said, a total of 83 yards netted against a bad Panthers team is not a good look when you're playing against a team that's fighting to get a better playoff spot. I'm taking the Steelers.
Oh, you're taking the Steelers.
And I hate picking teams that have Russell Wilson on them, by the way. As a 49er fan, it hurts my soul.
He's not a Seahawks anymore. Steelers are looking pretty good, though. They have I kind of like them in this game, too. Part of me wonder is the Eagles going to use this as an opportunity to try to show that, hey, turmoil or not, we're still that top-tier team. This would be the win to do it. But if they are teetering on any type of explosion, this may be the game to put them over the top, too, as far as boiling over with the turmoil.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking this is either a Steelers loss, as in A.J. Brown runs wild over them and just gets 8 catches, 150 yards, and 2 to 3 touchdowns. Or this is a game where by the end of it, you see A.J. physically yelling at Jalen Hurts on the sideline. I feel like those are one of 2 options that is going to happen here. So either they're going to win or they're going to implode or start imploding, which for the Eagles wouldn't be anything new under this regime, by the way. They did it last year. They started to do it this year. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens again.
Interesting. Sticking with this game, so Saquon Barkley, as we speak, is at 1,623 yards. We have about, I think, 5 games left in the year. Does he break the rushing record?
Well, who does they play against? They got the Steelers, the Commanders, the Cowboys, and the Giants. He very well could break that record. The Steelers is probably going to be the hardest team to run on over this next 4 weeks because they can run on Washington. You can definitely run on Dallas, and you can run on the Giants. And of course, Saquon running on the Giants. You saw what he did earlier this season against them. I think there's a real solid chance he gets at least 100 to 150 yards in each of the last 3 games.
the thing would be to break that record on the Giants.
Yeah,
That would be the
that would
thing.
just be the most poetic thing if he goes over 2,000 and scores against his old team.
Yeah, that would probably be.
With that being said, could he win the MVP then? That's breaking a rushing record.
He, if he breaks 2,000, I think he should win. But I mean,
Not break 2,000. Break the
oh,
rushing record. Like he has to break the
oh,
record.
if he actually breaks the record,
Yeah, if he
oh
actually
yeah,
breaks
I
Eric
think he
Dickerson's
has to
record.
win. I think he has to win MVP if he breaks the record. Now, if Josh Allen had won against the Rams with that performance, I think he might have secured the MVP, but they lost.
Yeah.
So if he had won running 3 in and then scoring 3, I think that might have locked in the MVP for him. But I don't think it's locked in because they lost the game, especially if they now turn around and lose in the game that's coming up, which we haven't talked about yet.
All right, just for reference, the rushing record is at 2,105 yards. And again, Saquon Barkley is at 1,600 yards. I'll give you the math on that in just a moment, but he'll have to essentially break. Where is it?
So 1,600?
No, it's just 600. 505 yards.
505 yards over 4 games. That's just over 100 yards a game. What does he have to average that?
Oh, let me just.
I think 505 divided by 4 is 126. He would have to get a roughly 127 yards a game over the next 4 games.
Okay. Think you can do it?
I think the Steelers is his toughest test. I don't know what the Steelers' rushing defense is, but I know it's not super easy to run on them. Let me look up their numbers real quick.
They're fifth in defense overall, allowing 239 points. I'm not sure what that rush defense is in regards to it, but they are definitely a top 5 defense in the league.
Let's see. Rushing
So I guess
defense.
You'll have to bring more than 100 on them.
2023, 2024. Okay, NFL is acting stupid. Let me just go to ESPN. ESPN rushing defense 2024. NFL pass rush, run stop. Give me the loot. There it is. Pulling up the article, and I want to see what they say about it.
I get you. I'm curious myself, actually.
All right. Oh, this is actual individual players. Okay. But I don't see any Steelers on top run stoppers either. Oh, no, I take that back. They have a defensive tackle, Larry. I don't know how to say that name. Ogunjobi. He is number 3 in defensive tackle run stopping. Only being beaten out by DJ Jones in Denver and Adam Butler in Vegas.
Looking here, this is on Fox Sports. The rush defense, they are ranked 4th, allowing only 91 yards on average.
Yeah, see, they're not even letting teams average out at 100 yards. And Saquon's supposed to get 125 by himself? Well, that's a tall order. That's a tall ass.
A dynamic player, though. If you that dynamic of a player, you're only asking for a daily workload.
He minds you now, he had 100 yards in the last game, but he had like over 20 carries too.
That's the thing. You're going to have to give him a lot.
All right, goes to show. It's going to be an interesting game to watch. Keep an eye on just to see if Shaquan even gets close to that. Another game to keep an eye on this week would be the Bills versus the Detroit Lions.
Yes, that is the one I'm looking at because the Bills are coming off of a loss. They can't really afford to lose another one. Not right now. If you're still fighting for the possibility of getting the number 1 seed, you lost it against the Rams because had they won that game, even though the Chiefs didn't win, they still would have been 1 game back. So now they're 2 games back, being the number 1 seed, and it's all but not going to happen unless the Chiefs make a mistake. So
interesting.
If the Bills want to be taken seriously, you need to win this game. You just lost to Matt Stafford on the road. Now, granted, that's a cross-country trip, but still, Now you're staying on the road, and you got to take on a team that's lacking on defense. Now the Bills, their defense isn't stellar. It's not superstar defense, but it should be enough to hold off the Lions, right? It should be. And if everyone that wants Josh Allen to be the MVP, this is the game you need to prove it in, Josh. This is it. This is the top team considered in the NFC right now. If you beat them and beat them convincingly, not only will you have taken out the two teams that were in the NFC title game last year, that's the top of the conference. All right. You have to win to look like it. If you turn around and lose back-to-back to the Rams and the Lions, people are going to start being out as you being an MVP. I'm gonna just say that. If they lose this game, Josh Allen's going to start being taken a little bit further out of the MVP conversation. Because as you saw last year, it only takes one game for you to mess around and not be considered anymore. So let Saquon go over 100, and when they win that game and Josh Allen loses to the Lions, oh man, it's going to get real interesting. That being said, I am picking the Lions to win this game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I don't think Josh Allen should be the MVP personally. So I don't listen. That's me. I do think it's
that's fair.
He's not going to win. It should be. He's having the best season of his career.
But they don't have as good of a record.
Well, maybe not a good record, but it's still a winning record, and they can still make the playoffs. So I mean,
that's true.
That's at least there. But also, I can't say you can't take the Bills seriously because you talk about an NFC team, mind you. They did beat the Chiefs. That's an AFC threat. They did. Well, they lost to the Ravens, so that's not a real threat.
I hear you on beating the Chiefs, but that's their fourth time they've done that. They're 4-1 against the Chiefs in the regular season. Do it in the playoffs.
Who's the best team in the league? The thing was
the Chiefs.
That's why I think they will still maintain to be a serious team. I don't think it's going to be the end of the world if they lose this game. I think it's just more so, okay, they're not as good as some may think, and I do think this game could cost Josh Allen the MVP nod.
It could.
If he actually has it. But I don't know. I don't see this as the end of the world because, it's just like the Ravens. What you do in the regular season doesn't mean much because it does become what you're going to do in the playoffs. We know you're a good regular season team. There's no doubt about that. Can they finish what they started while, going through their playoff run? That's all.
No, that's fair.
Because I don't know what to make of the line. I don't know what to make of the Bills in that regard. Regular season, because right now they're 10-3. I think even if they lose out hypothetically the rest of these games, they'll still make the playoffs and be what? The 6th seed at worst? Yeah, I want to see them.
Playoffs. No, they're the Bills or the Lions. The Bills are making the play. They won their division. Yeah, they're making the playoffs.
Yeah, both of them are going to make it. So that's why I don't think this is too much of a make or break, but it's going to be a fascinating game, mind you. The Lions are a 1.5 point favorite, so they're expecting this to be a close game. I got the Bills winning only because I think the Lions may put themselves in a situation they can't get out of.
That's fair.
That's why.
And the Lions defense is a question mark, but I don't know. There's something about that offense that I think if they keep pushing, they'll be able to get the job done. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I feel like they'll pull out the W.
Lions do have a top 10 defense. They could possibly do that.
Uh-oh. Oh, yeah. My phone's at 20%. All right. Let's see. Who else is playing? Yeah, I won't be able to charge it while we're recording. It won't do that.
Okay. All right.
It's got an issue with the charging port. Yeah.
We're close to it.
Yeah.
A few games left. I'm about
to say, who's left on the schedule?
You got Packers and Seahawks, Bears and Vikings, which we talked about those two teams. The Bears will be playing spoiler for the most part. Well, the Vikings will be trying to maintain the road.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the Bears have played their division fairly close in almost every game. They just haven't been able to pull out a win, which shows that they have the talent to compete in their division. They just don't either have the scheme to get it done or the personnel or the right guy calling the plays. And granted, Caleb is a rookie. I think that's a lot. People are throwing a lot at his feet, saying he's not as good as people thought he was. But, I mean, come on, dude. He lost his coach and his offensive coordinator, and it's still his rookie season. Like, what do you want the kid to do?
Overcome.
That's what we're doing.
Hey,
None of
that's
the
what
other
Joe Burrow
rookies have to
did.
go through this.
That's what Joe Burrow did. No, Joe Burrow did. Joe Burrow was told to stay in college to avoid going to that
He
disaster
did,
with the
yeah.
Bengals. And what did Joe Burrow do? He turned
Yeah,
that
he
team
went to the
around.
Super Bowl and lost.
Well, that was the second year.
Yeah.
First year, they did okay. And I mean, I don't know. That's why I don't like rookies starting immediately. I just don't. Uh-oh.
He got hurt.
Does it still show that you're recording? Because mine just said you stopped recording. It says recording. We'll finish it.
Yeah, it's a recording.
Okay,
No,
we'll
wasn't the first year Joe Burrow was there? Didn't he get hurt?
Oh yeah, he did get hurt, but he still managed to finish most of that year. But he did get hurt, and then they ended up picking Jamar Chase the following year, and he went on the run they were expecting because Joe Burrow was one of the most set QBs in that year.
I got you.
I mean, you know, it's always a tall order for rookie when they go to a team.
When you're a high pick, you're guaranteed to go to a bad team. And when that happens, you are expected to either take that team over, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, or you're expected to kind of wait your turn, JJ McCarthy.
That's fair.
Depending.
I'll give you that.
All right.
Maybe I need to lighten up on the Vikings. That's all I'm saying.
Your issue is Sam Darnold. And my thing is, don't focus so much on Sam Darnold because he's just another cog in the wheel that is the Vikings. It's not all him. He's just part of it. It's not all him.
That's fair. I can't be mad at it. That's fair. It's fair. Oh, look at that. The Giants have announced that Tommy DeVito starting this week against the Ravens. Look at that.
I don't think they had a choice. I love Danny DeVito, though. His movies are great.
Who doesn't love a good Tommy DeVito game?
All right. Sounds racist.
It would be racist if I start talking about gabagool. I'm not going to do that. So.
All love the order to gabagool. But in that regard, we're actually going to wrap up this episode here. Now, we dropped a few gems, few picks, few ideas. Like and subscribe. Tell us what you think when you go to the YouTube comments. And we'll see you out there in the interwebs. Chris, do you have any final words for our fans?
Yeah, I want someone to tell me why my list was wrong. Because, you know, I put my list out. It's Extra Crispy's list. But all of a sudden, no, dude, the Vikings. I don't want to hear about the Vikings until they show me otherwise. All right.
Oh, until they show you otherwise.
They beat the Packers.
They did. Okay. Yeah. Maybe it's the coach. Maybe I like Matt LaFleur over Kevin O'Connell. Maybe that's it.
Maybe that is it. I don't know. But hey, we'll figure it out. And next week, we'll see where the list stands. But until then, we hope you guys have a good rest of your night and see you on the next down.
Good night, everybody. All right, so what I can do, I'm going to pop this on the wireless charger. That's how I have to charge.